Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And we are going. Thank you, Harlan. Let me go ahead into the screen share. There we are. So as you can see, we are in the midst of vaYetzei. We're at the point where Jacob is about to meet Rebecca, and he is so taken over by her beauty. This is the first example in the Bible, and perhaps the only example in the Bible, of love at first sight, literally love at first sight. Okay, or should I make it a little clearer and say infatuation at first sight? We do know the difference. Anyway, so we said how he meets Rachel, he kisses her, and he cries. You know, he is so emotional, right? And the Rashi gives a beautiful interpretation of why he cried, because he saw in the future they would not be buried together, because in fact they are not. So, Vayagid Yaakov LaRachel, and Jacob told Rachel, Ki achi avihahu, that he is a brother of her father. That's going to require a little explanation. He wasn't literally the brother of her father, right? V'chi ben Rivkahu, and in fact that he was the son of Rebecca. V'tarotz v'taged la'aviha, and she ran and she told her father. So we have a little bit to unpack. Some that we might not have thought we needed to unpack, but we do. Ki achi aviyahu, that he was the brother of her father. And Rashi tells us that the term brother doesn't always mean literally brother. It means karov. He is a relative, that he literally means near, right? A relative of her father's. And he gives an example up above, right, where it says, Anashim achim anachnu, we are brothers. Well, I believe the context of that is Abraham or Abram at the time speaking to Lot when they needed to part company because their shepherds were arguing with one another. They were fighting, and Lot and Abram says to Lot, we need to just part company. You go one direction, I'll go the other direction, because we are Anashim Achim. And of course, they were not brothers. Lot was Abram's, I believe, nephew would be the correct term. So, Umidrasho, there's a midrash on this. Okay, that we are brothers, meaning we operate on the same terms. Im lerma ot huba, if he's going to come to cheat me, trick me, cheat me, gamani achiv berama ot. No worse than him when it comes to cheating. I am like his brother when it comes to cheating. V'im adam kasherhu, however, if he is a righteous person, acts in a fitting way, Gamani ben Rivka, indeed I am the son of Rivka, Achoto, his sister, indeed his sister, Akshera, who is kasher, that she was a decent person. Interesting, there's the subtle distinction, right? That being the son of Rivka gave him hope to be a kasher person. Well, of course, Rachel goes off and it says, V'taged la'aviha, she went and told her father. Well, there's part of our culture that would have thought, why would she go tell her dad? Shouldn't she be going to tell her mom? Wouldn't that make more sense? This is from Bereshit Rabbah. And the Fisha Ima Meta, the reason she didn't go talk to her mother is that her mother was deceased. She had passed away. V'lo hayala lahagid ela lo, and there was no one else for her to tell except him. Onwards. Vayhi, Chishmoa Laban et Shema Yaakov. And it turned out that when Laban heard the news of Jacob, the tidings, right, the hearings of Jacob, Ben Achoto, the son of his sister, i.e. his nephew, right? Vayarotz likrato, he ran to meet him. And in some ways, this parallels, right? I believe Rebecca running to Eliezer to take care of him and his camels, right? Vayachabeklo, he hugged him. Vayinasheklo, and he kissed him. Vayavi ehu el beito, and he brought him to his house by Sapir Lavan, and he, meaning Jacob here, Lavan told Laban, et kol hadvarim ha'ela. He told him about all these things. We aren't okay, so we aren't told exactly, but we have to figure that he told him about what happened and brought him to Haran. So kissing isn't always so nice, and hugging isn't always so nice. We know that there's sort of a pernicious downside, a pernicious underbelly to these things at times. At times, they can be indeed genuine expressions of affection, but not necessarily. And we'll find out why. Vayarotz likrato, he ran to meet him. Why the detail? Bereshit Rabbah Kisavur. Why? Well, we're going to find out about Laban. Laban was a greedy guy. He worshipped money and things like that, and he'd go to any extent to attain it. And we know this is something that is inside. When people worship money, they're not always worried about how they acquire money. At any rate, he was of the opinion, he was convinced, Mammon hu ta'un, that that is Jacob, was carrying money. Why? Share Eved Habayit Ba'alakan, because the slave of the house, meaning Eliezer, right, previously, had come Lakan to hear, but Asara Gamalim to Anim, with 10 laden camels with goods for them. So that's why he ran, in anticipation of getting a lot of loot here. Vaychabek, and he hugged. So when he didn't see anything with him, Amar, he thought, Shema Zahuvim Hevim, maybe he brought gold coins, Vehinam Becheko, and they are in his bosom. He's carrying them carefully. And so he hugged him to see if there was any money in there. Could feel any money, Bereshit Rabbah. How about kissing him? Amar, he thought to himself, Shema Magoliotevi, maybe he brought pearls, Vahem Befiv, and they're in his mouth. So these are the hugging and the kissings of Laban. Vaisapir Lavan, and he, that is of course Jacob, told Laban. What did he tell him? Shelo ba ela mitoch ones achiv, and that the only reason he showed up was that he was forced to by his brother, by Esau, and Esau's threat to kill him. Veshinatlu mamono mimenu, and that he took all his money from him. And we read about that in the previous section. Eliphaz chased Jacob, caught up with him, was supposed to kill him on Esau's bidding, but because he had been raised on Isaac's lap, so to speak, he said, what am I going to do? I'm supposed to do this. My father told me. And Jacob said to him, take all my money, because a poor person, someone who's totally destitute, it's like they can be compared to someone who's deceased. It's not a pretty comparison, but understand where it's coming from. Next. Vayomer lo Lavan. So Laban said to him, Ach atzmi ubasari ata. Why, only you? You're simply my bone and my flesh. You are. And so he dwelt with him for a month of days. Literally, it says. In other words, 30 days. He stayed with him for 30 days. So see, get into this. You're only my bone and my flesh. Me'ata, and for this reason, ein li le'aspecha habaita, right? And for this reason, it says, I don't need to gather you in to the house, ho'il ve'ein biyadcha klum, because there's nothing in your hands. You didn't bring anything. Elami pe kurva. But the only reason, in other words, the only reason I have to allow you to stay with me is kurva, meaning you're a relative. That's the only reason I'm taking you in, because you're my flesh and blood. Et palbach, and that's why I will deal with you. Chodesh Yamim, for a month. That's it. Maximum stay. 1 month. Just because you didn't bring anything, but you're a family. Gotta let you in. V'chein asa, and that's what he did. V'af v'zo lo lechinam, but he didn't do this for nothing. Laban didn't do it for nothing. Shehaya ro'eh tzono. He made Jacob pasture his flock. He made Jacob his shepherd. So Jacob had to, in a sense, pay for his stay with Laban. And we're getting a little insight as to Laban's sense of generosity. And what is so sad, of course, is that the Torah is giving us an example of people like this who live today as well. So, at any rate, human nature. Vayomer Laban hachi ata. So Laban said to Jacob, well, you are my achi, right? Not my brother, but my relative. Since you're my relative, vavadatani chinam. We could, because of this ha here, right? There's a question that it's an interrogative, and he's saying vavadatani chinam. Does that mean you should work for me for nothing, right? This thing about Laban is, on the surface, he seems like a sweetheart, and underneath, he's not a sweetheart, okay? But should you work, just because you're a relative, should you work for me for none? What's Jacob working for him anyway, right? Hagidali, please tell me, ma maskurtecha, what are your wages? What should be your wages? Well, achi ata, are you not my relative? Lashon tema. And Rashi is going to give an explanation. He says, this is an interrogative. It's a question. It's surprise. V'chi bishvil she'achi ata. And since only that you're my relative, hevadatan ta'avdeni chinam, does that mean you should work for me for nothing? Well, maybe the answer actually Laban's looking for really is yes, but anyway. Va'avadatani, you should work for me. Now, literally, this means, if we did not have this vav, which Rashi is going to explain, it would mean you worked for me. But because it's avad is the perfect tense, it's the past tense, it's completed action. But with this vav, it becomes imperfect, incomplete action, in other words, future. Kamo v'ta'avdeni. Ta'avdeni, the ta in front indicates a future imperfect tense. And now he tells us, v'chein kol teva, he says, anytime you come across a word, shehu lashon avar, which is in the past tense, osif vav barosha, you add a vav at the beginning of the word, vehi hofechet hateva lahaba, and it switches that word into the imperfect, the future tense. And it's called the Vav HaMahapechet in grammar. It's called I believe it's the the conversive Vav, right? As opposed to the Vav that represents and. Okay, going on. Lavan shtei vanot, and Laban had 2 daughters. Shem Hagdolah, Leah. The elder one was Leah. That was her name. The name of the elder one was Leah. V'Shem Haktana Rachel, and the name of the little one, or the younger one, was Rachel. Let's take a look. I don't think there's any Rashi on that. Nope. Okay. The Enele Arakot is a famous verse, right? The eyes of Leah were soft. Well, I think soft eyes are actually a sign of beauty, and sure enough, look at this. Look at the Targum. The Enei Leah yan, and the eyes of Leah were beautiful. So, because soft, I think some people have gone as far as saying like she was nearsighted or something like that. But I think what you'll see, we're going to finish the verse and you'll see, I think, the way the verse is trying to be structured, right? So almost like, while the eyes of Leah were beautiful, the Rachel Haita, but Rachel was Yefat Toar. She was beautiful of form, or beautiful of complexion, v'yafat mar'eh, and beautiful to behold. She was a gorgeous lady. So it's not that Leah wasn't beautiful, but she wasn't as beautiful as her younger sister. Her younger sister was gorgeous. So, Rakot. So in Baba Batra, Kufka. So Baba Batra, page 123. Why the detail? Why the detail? Shahaita sfura la'alot begoralo shel Esav, because she thought that she was going to be designated for Esau. Why? Uvachta. So, but that's why she was crying. Shahayu hakolome, because people were saying to her, Shnei banim leRivka. Rivka has two sons, Ushtei banot leLavan, and her brother Laban has two daughters. Agdola leGadol, the older daughter will go to the older son. V'aktana leKatan, and the younger one will go to the younger son. And so people were telling her she was destined for Esau, and she was a righteous woman, and she was crying because of the thought of being married to Esau. To'ar. So To'ar, Rashi explains, Utsurat hapartsuf. It is the shape of the face. Lashon explains it in so from Isaiah, Yitarehu bisrad, I think, or besered. He marks it out. There's the word to'ar, right? To mark out with a stylus. And compass, right? In other words, circle, he says a circle. In other words, the shape of her face. Okay. Mar'eh, to view. Hu ziv klastar, that refers to her complexion. It's a idiom, ziv klastar. Okay. We sometimes talk about the klastar panim. It doesn't sound to me like the word klastar is an initially Hebrew word. That I wonder if it's a word borrowed from Greek. That's just an aside here. Onwards. Vayehav Yaakov et Rachel. There it goes. Jacob was in love with Rachel. He loved her. Vayomer. And so he said to Laban. So remember, we left off with Laban saying, what is your, what should I compensate you? How should I compensate you? And then we had this whole little side conversation giving us the background. So Jacob says, Vayomer e'evodcha sheva shanim. I will work for you for 7 years. Berachel, for Rachel, Bitcha, your daughter, Haktana, your younger daughter. Why didn't he just stop at Berachel? Why Bitcha Haktana? And Rashi's going to tell us. By the way, I want to tell you that I do think of my late father. I remember hearing this drush from him, from his mouth, and just the need for clarification. Evodcha sheva shanim, right? I will work for you for 7 years. Heim yamim achadim. They just seemed like a few days, right? They didn't seem like that long a time. She'amra lo imo, that his mother referred to, v'yashavta imo yamim achadim, when she said to Jacob, before he had to flee. You just stay there for a few days. But Teda, and you should know, Shekenhu, that's exactly what she meant. Sha'arei kativ, because it says later on, Vayu be'enav kayamim achadim. And in his eyes, they were like just a few days. He was so in love and getting to see Rachel every single day over those 7 years. They passed incredibly quickly. Berachel bitcha ktana, for Rachel, your younger daughter. Kol hasimanim halalu, all these indicators, meaning Rachel, Bitcha, Haktana, that he needed to indicate all these things. Lama, what do we need them? The Fisha Yayodeabo, because Jacob knew about Laban. He knew what a trickster he was. Shehu Ramai, that he was a cheat. Amar Lo, had he said to him, he thought about him. If I said to Laban, I'll work for you for Rachel, Shema, it's possible, Tomar, he's going to say, Rachel acheret min hashuk, that when it comes to payment, he's going to find another woman by the name of Rachel, right? Literally a different Rachel from the marketplace. Talmud Lomar, and in case he says that, Bitcha, I'm going to say, your daughter. V'shema tomar she'achalif leleah shma, and lest you, Laban, think that you will switch Leah's name to Rachel and Rachel's name to Leah, right? I'll switch around Leah to be her name. V'ekra shma Rachel, and I'll call her name Rachel. I'll call Leah Rachel. I'll just do a name change. Talmud Lomar Hakatana. So for that reason, Jacob said, your younger daughter. For Afal Pichen, and nevertheless, Lo Hihil, it didn't help ultimately. Shahare Ramahu, because in fact, he cheated him. He cheated him at the end of it anyway. Which, of course, just goes to show you that if a person is bent on being deceptive, it doesn't really matter, right? My mind's made up, don't confuse me with the facts, right? So there we are. We'll take another one more. So let's keep going here. Okay, we've got a bunch to do. Vayomer Laban. So Laban said, Tov titi or talach. Well, it's just as well for me to give her to you, mi titi or tala ishacher, from giving her to another man. Shvai madi, remain with me. Now, how one actually interprets this, what he was saying was, he wasn't saying, gosh, that's wonderful. He was saying, well, you're as good as anyone else, is what he was saying to him. He wasn't saying to him, that sounds wonderful. He was saying, yes, okay, no big deal. You're no big deal. And so Jacob labored for Rachel for 7 years. He worked. There we go. Here it says. And then those years were in his eyes like just a few days. But ahavato ota, in that he loved her so much. That's why. Don't think we've got any Rashis for a while. Let me make sure. Okay, verse 21 is the next one. Let's go. Next, that's the next verse. Vayomer Yaakov el Laban, and Jacob said to Laban, Hava et ishti, bring my wife. Ki mal'u yamai, because I have filled my days. Literally, I've made the full payment. Va'avoha eleha, and let me come to her. Which, of course, is a nice way of saying, let me be intimate with her. And I'm going to do the Rashi in a second, but I want to mark the place. Okay, here we go. Right there. Rashi. Mal'u Yamai, my days are filled. She'amra li, She'amra li imi. Yes, my days that my mother spoke of, right? The days that I need to stay with you, that my mother referred to as Yamim Achadim, I have fulfilled. Ve'od mal'u Yamai Sharei ani ben Pei Dalet. He says, not only that, but I am fully, I filled up my years because I am now, hold it, I am 84 years old. So again, Shana, Peda Shana. Ve'ematai Amid, and at what point am I going to be able to establish Yud Bet Shvatim, 12 tribes? Ve'zehu Namar, and this is referred to why, Va'avoa Eleha, and let me be intimate with her. Why would he say such a thing? V'halo kal shebakalim eino omer ken. He says the simplest person, the most common. Excuse me, Harlan, you need to mute. Thank you.
Hello.
Oh gosh. Okay, give me a second. Take care of this. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Okay.
How old did we say he was?
84.
84. Okay.
84. Yes, just almost finished. Give me a second here. Sorry. Okay. So he's saying, wow, what's he saying this? He needs to tell Laban so that he marry Rachel so that he can be intimate with her. Who says that kind of thing is what Rashi's saying. But he was saying that he needs to have offspring. That's the reason he said it. In other words, he was saying, bring my wife. I've fulfilled the number of days I'm supposed to be here so that I am able, and I'm 84 years old, and I need to fulfill, be able to have progeny, 12 tribes. And with this, we will stop the share. And I will stop the, okay, did I? Yeah, stop the recording.